Can passive income actually make you rich? Well, I think it's one of the number one ways you can do it to not just become rich, but also become free. Let's dive in. Okay, so passive income, there's no doubt I love passive income. My shirt says it all, right? I love it. But it's also not just because it can create a lot of wealth for you, but it's the here and now. What kind of income can you create for yourself today? That's big. And so I'm gonna share not just what's worked for our clients, but also what's worked for me personally that allowed me to become retired even before the age of 40. Let's talk about that right now. All right, so let's just address this question. Can passive income make you rich? By itself, I would say no, it doesn't. But that's not the point, right? It's not about getting rich, it's about living a rich life. It's to have income coming in that pays for that life. Here's the thing. You can have millions and millions of dollars, but if you got paid $1 a month, would you give a crap? No, right? You need that income. So passive income by itself does not make you rich, but it's an awesome way to live a better life. So let's talk about that, because it's not just about the passive income, and it's not just about creating wealth. It's about how do we get both to work together. Now, if your whole goal is just to get rich, here's the thing. Instead of just focusing on passive income, focus on the things that have actually helped people become rich. The easiest way to do this, guys, is look at the Forbes 500 list, right? If you want to see the ultra wealthy, the wealthiest people in the world, you'll see one thing in common. They all own businesses. Hands down, they all own businesses that produce a lot of value in the world, produce a lot of income, profits, and that's where they have their wealth. Business is the number one way. A close second is you'll see that some of these people are also investors. Real estate is one of the best places to do it. Now you'll see a lot of oil and gas people, but they're oil and gas business investors, not just they own oil and gas. They're not just owning barrels, right? It's the production of those barrels, the business of making the oil and gas. That's where they make all their money. So business, real estate is one of the surefire ways to do it. Guys, I've even known people accidentally become multi-millionaires in real estate not knowing what they're doing. They just literally bought and hold. I had a client here recently. They're out of California. They inherited some money back in 1997. Their father passed away, and so the money was there. Now, their family members said to one of them, to my client, they said, hey, you know what? You should take that money and just leave it. Set and forget it. Leave it in the stocks that they're invested in. So they did. They left in those stocks for many, many years. Sadly, over 25 years, they left it in that place. While on the other hand, her sister said, you know what? I'm going to cash that out. I'm not going to leave it in those stocks. I'm actually going to go buy land and buy some real estate. 25 years later, my client, although they made some money from the stock appreciating, still, they only had a few $100,000. But her sister instead made a couple $1 million, over 10 times the amount of wealth using real estate. And again, she wasn't like a professional real estate investor. She was just an amateur. But that's the thing. I've seen people accidentally become millionaires because they buy real estate. They buy something that actually does appreciate. It's a real asset. It's not speculative. It's a company that can go up or down, left or right. It's something that's actually real. So if you're going to try to get wealthy, do what the wealthy people have done. You never, ever, ever hear about people in the news saying, news at 11. This person saved in their 401k for the last 40 years and they are now wealthy. They're in the Forbes 500 list. How did they do it? You never hear that. You don't even hear those people making the news ever, unless it's about the fact that there's some tragic tale that they didn't save enough, right? Maybe something happened when the market's tanked. You'll always hear this when the market goes down. You always hear these sob stories about people that have lost that money. And it is a sob story. It is a sad story. But it's not because they didn't have any other choice. It was just because they didn't know they had another choice. They didn't know they had another alternative to that, right? That's the problem. They weren't investing for passive income. They were investing based on what their financial advisors and all the other financial stupid media experts will tell you, the experts, so to speak, right? The ones that, of course, made money in business and in real estate in many cases, but then tell you put your money in a place that's different, like the stock market, where they didn't make their money, right? They'll tell you to do all this stuff, but they made their money somewhere else. The only difference between me and them is that I'll actually tell you to put money in those very same places that I made money in myself, right? And that's where the problem is. They put their money there and then it doesn't work. You need to build wealth, yes, but it's not about just the wealth, it's about what the income that wealth produces. And this kind of leads to my next point. This is where it gets dangerous, is that if you get in that accumulation mindset that financial advisors give you, you will build a lot of net worth. And I even hear people out there, even people that are well-meaning, good people, will say net worth is the ultimate measure of your success. I'm going to answer and say that's bull. Because nobody gives a crap about net worth. Net worth is worthless unless it produces income and buys your time back. It buys that freedom back in your life, right? That's what you're hoping that net worth does. But what I find is that we get a lot of these people who are asset rich, cash poor. They've got good assets, but there's little to no cash flow coming from those assets. And so what do they keep doing? They keep building those assets more. They think, if I just keep building more and more assets, I keep accumulating more money, at some point I can now live on less than the interest, right? And so they build, build, build. And by the way, I'm not talking about the dumb FIRE movement, the financially independent retire early, where they still believe in that old 4% rule, which does not work if you're trying to retire early. It's a 2% rule. Get it right, guys. Okay? So even then, you're like, oh, I got $1 million. Good, you live on $20,000 a year? How's that gonna work out for you? So I'll give you an example. Like, I had one client that he's actually worth over $10 million, but he's a rancher, right? He's a rancher. He's got all this money in land. He can barely afford to pay the taxes. By the way, this story happens all the time with farmers and ranchers. They end up selling off bits of their land little by little because they can't even afford to pay the taxes on that land. They barely make enough to even support their family, let alone pay the taxes on this property that isn't like a cash cow, no pun intended. But actually, well, okay, you can make a pun intended. I wasn't intending it, but hey, it worked. But yeah, they didn't really make this good income from it. And so like with one of my clients, we spent years getting to the point where finally we found a bank that was willing to lend him on that money, on that land, that value. So he was able to get out well over $1 million. He paid off his other line of credit because he would always run up the line of credit all year. And then when it came slaughter season for the cattle, he would pay off that line of credit and then starts over again next winter, builds it up, pays it off whenever there's a slaughter each fall. Well, he was getting tired of that. It was like his own rat race, right? He's like, I want that freedom. He's like, I just want an extra $100,000 a year, even $10,000 a month. I'll take that. Well, once we got out well over $1 million, guess what happened? He was able to invest that in different places, including even some real estate. It just wasn't his real estate. It wasn't just raw land. He was investing in things that actually income produced. And so when he started to do that, guess what happens, guys? He's now making over 200 grand a year, and that's after he pays his mortgage payment on that land. So he went from debt-free, all these assets, which is supposed to be the dream, right? And can barely pay his tax bill, let alone his own bills, to now he's got more than enough to provide for his family. And all the stuff that he makes from his ranch now is all gravy. I had another client, same kind of thing. Now, she wasn't a rancher, she wasn't a farmer, doing very well. They made great money in their business and things like that. Well, we started to look at their finances. They said they had $5 million sitting in stocks, and not just any stocks, all tech stocks, like Facebook, Meta, Google, things like that. I was like, whoa, and Apple. I'm like, hey, if the tech stocks tank, you can go from 5 million down to like 2 million in just a month or two, depending on what happens, depending on how crazy things get. And so we started to look at ways of what could we do? How can we make this better? Well, the first thing we saw before we even looked at anything with investing is we said, wait a minute, if we actually refinance your mortgage because you're paying a really high payment for the balance because they were getting closer to paying it off, I said, what if we refinance your mortgage, bring the payment down, and heck, we can even pay off some of these other loans and things that they had outstanding, just loans that they had, nothing big. But still, by doing all that, they freed up almost $4,000 a month. So even before we invested a dime, guys, still, they were able to have another $4,000 a month. That's almost $50,000 a year that they were able to have back in their life again. On top of that, what's even cooler is that now they had all this money to invest. They haven't even cashed out all their stocks, right? They've only done a little bit of it, a few million of that 5 million. And when they went from zero cash flow, zero passive income, to now making over a couple hundred grand a year, plus the almost 50 grand, 40 plus grand a year, that they're freed up on that side as well. They're actually in a place where they could be financially independent. They could retire right now, when before with $5 million of stocks, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't retire at all. They had to keep working and slaving away. That's the problem with the accumulation model, really the financial advisor mindset, right? That doesn't work. What works is creating passive income. And just so you know, now they're making a couple $100,000 a year of income. Yeah, those stocks could go up, but they could also go down. But if they're making a couple $100,000 of income coming in, if they don't even use it, they just reinvest it, now it builds up your net worth faster because now you're making more income to add to the income you're already doing at work, and it just keeps building and building. These guys are work optional, yet they decide to keep working because they want to, not because they have to. That is freedom. That is real wealth. It's not about how much money you accumulate. It's about passive income. Can passive income really make you rich, right? Just like we asked about here? Yes, but not in the way that many people think. It's about creating that rich life because it's the income that allows you to live the life of freedom, to live the life on your terms instead of living on the government's terms. That's the key difference. I'm here to tell you that passive income is possible and it's in your future. Go to moneyripples.com, try the passive income calculator to see what your number is. How much passive income could you create in the next year? Try that out at moneyripples.com.